So today we're interviewing a number of founders from across Fifth Wall's very diverse portfolio about a number of the challenges and obstacles they faced in building their companies. Today we're talking about quitting and pivoting. And I think it's really critical that entrepreneurs have good instincts about when to pivot and when to quit. Many a startup story, whether they talk about it or not, includes a moment where the entrepreneur thought about quitting or had to pivot. For some founders, quitting is just not a part of their vocabulary.
I mean, it goes back to the irrational optimism. I've never even fathomed quitting.
I'd rather fight to the death than quit.
Almost never have I quit. I usually wait till I'm like carried out on the stretcher kind of thing.
For others, it's a total part of their reality.
Founders probably are kidding themselves or lying if they don't just straight up admit that they probably think about quitting all the time. And anybody who says otherwise, I'll call bullshit on it. You should always be aware of, whether you've been pushed to the breaking point and you're thinking about quitting or not. And that's what makes somebody an entrepreneur.
I almost quit several times in the sense that I was like, it's great to be an angel investor. Why don't I just keep doing that with my own money? But I'm very glad that I stuck it out because now I feel that we're building something special with Bristol.
There's a moment in which I just felt like I should just quit. I can't do this anymore. So at that point, I called my dad and he just asked me one question, which is like, are you quitting on a high or are you quitting on a low? And how do you feel about it? It's fine to quit, it's not a problem. But maybe just, embrace the situation, try to build the relationships and do it in a good way. And also found my own strength in those moments where you're just feeling like you can't get through this.
Sometimes it's not about walking away, it's about changing directions. Some of the greatest companies we know today were built from a pivot. Here's what founders had to say about their experiences, about the art of the pivot.
Sealed actually launched with a different product than what we have today. And it was a mediocre product. And those are the products that are the most difficult to give up on, because when you have something that's mediocre, then you kind of think, well, if I only made it a little bit better, could it work? It's kind of like if you're in a relationship with someone and like you like them, but you're thinking you're probably not the love of your life, but they haven't done something horrible. It can be a little bit difficult to break up with them. It was very difficult to pivot away from it. I'm really happy that we did, because we wouldn't have our current product in the company that we have today. And also importantly, we are able to use a lot of the IP from that first product to make it possible to do what we're doing today. But it was really hard to pivot away from that, and it's something that I was resistant to for a long time.
Pivoting for some reason has like a negative connotation. And I think that's wrong. I think you have to pivot based on what's happening with your customer or a market, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like ships change course for good reason, right? They're heading into a hurricane. You should change course. It doesn't mean that you won't make it to your destination, but it doesn't mean it's the same way to get there. And so I'm actually a big fan of like using data and information and instinct to change direction to drive an outcome. That's just business. And it's usually pretty good business. Sometimes a better word for pivot is just transformation. It's like our business or evolution. Our business has evolved. And so even for us, the way that we started, it probably felt like a pivot for a lot of people from where we are today. But the reality is our vision was always the same, but the way that we were going to get there continuously changes, right? By adding new products, by doing acquisitions. But it's always, anything we do, it always ties back to the same vision, right? And delivers the same outcome. But the way you get there might be different.
But I just love change. And some people view pivoting as a negative. I think it's a positive. If I see a better direction to go, I'm like, all right, well, let's just go in the better direction. Why would we not want to go in the right direction? Their fair counter argument is like, hey, sometimes it's only like 10% better and the pivot costs us 30%. If the pivot's 10x better, then let's do it. If it's 10% better, let's not do it. And I think I probably underestimate the cost of the pivot compared to what, because I love changing, and so I just assume everyone loves to change, and that it'll be cheap to pivot as a result. But that's not the case when real humans and real process and real organizations are involved.
In the early part of the company, we didn't know who we were, so it was just much more natural and fluid. But as we've defined now what we want to go create, it's not the pivots don't happen to the big vision or what we want to get done, but the pivot happens in the approach of how we get there and what's the best way to get there. I think that's where, I find pivots, and I almost see them as learning opportunities, and those things often connect the dots. So it's also not that you were wasting your time doing something different. Actually, what you did there, I think, often ends up helping you connect the dots with what you're doing next.
If you get to a point where the fundamental thesis of the company is being challenged, then it's a lot more than a pivot, in my opinion, right? Then it probably warrants a pretty hard look at whether you have the right team, whether you have the right hypothesis that you're trying to solve, and if it is in fact the thing that you want to be solving. If you don't have the conviction post-pivot, then it's probably not the right thing for a founder or the founding team to be working on. We brought a product to market, and we quickly realized that the way we were selling the product was actually not a compelling way to sell product. And we learned that by talking to dozens of channel partners and customers. So we started to focus on the things that were actually pain points for the channel, and realized that our assumptions of what those pain points were just wrong, right? And those are the kind of natural pivots that I think are, or organic pivots are part and parcel of building a company.
We're not good at pivoting at Doma. I'd say that we've picked our bets and we've stuck to them, and sometimes we've probably remained committed to things longer than we should have. And so I think if anything, I've learned that I should probably be more nimble and willing to embrace pivots where they make good business sense.
For some people, trusting your gut is easy, but for others, it's really hard. And what should you do to learn to trust your instincts and trust your gut?
More important than trusting other people, the most important person to trust is yourself. And think about the reason why you got to where you are today. It's because of you and the instinct that you had. And typically your first instinct is the best one. That's what I've learned from my experiences.
You need to have a deep-seated belief in solving a specific problem to be a successful founder. And so my advice to founders that are having doubts is like, it's not time to be a founder yet. Keep working in a regular job.
Break your instincts down to this smallest set of things that you really know are true, and figure out what solid ground exists amongst the noise.
Trust the instincts, make decisions, but then have the structure to actually validate those decisions so that you can then actually improve the iterative process of your own instincts and also have data as a part of the process.
Get a good handle on the why, right? Like, why did I start this company? Why am I making the decisions I'm making right now? And what are the motivations to continue on the journey? And then find solid advisors to go talk to.
Hedging your instincts just waters down your business. If you don't trust your instincts, you don't go all in on it, you're making it more likely that you fail, and you're lowering the expected value of your outcomes. And so you kind of have to trust your instincts and go all in on something. Either fully trust your instincts or don't trust them at all and go in a different direction.
At a certain point, you've got to remember that this is your brainchild. You understand the problem more than probably anybody, or you better, or you should be building the business. And so your investors believe in that too, right? Early stage companies, you're not investing in the company. You're investing in that person, right? In their instincts. And so that should give you the confidence you need to trust them and activate, right? And if that means pivoting, then you pivot. If you want to second guess yourself, then ask someone you trust to say, am I crazy? What do you think about this? But you have to own the outcome, right? Trust your instincts, but own the outcome, good or bad.
So the pivot and quitting, these are sometimes bad words in entrepreneurship and in the startup world, but they're actually not bad words. I think they're words that in some ways underpin everything it means to be a founder, what it means to struggle in building a business, what it means to think creatively about how to change an industry or change the economy. But in reality, pivoting and quitting is something that crosses every entrepreneur's mind. And learning how to think about it and how to reflect on the opportunities to do so and how to have those experiences make you a better entrepreneur, that I think is something that's very powerful and every entrepreneur should pay close attention to. So if you like this, subscribe to our channel, comment, let people know what you think about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, what companies you're thinking of starting, what you're struggling with, and encourage others to share in this wealth of knowledge around what it means to be an entrepreneur and the struggles that every entrepreneur goes through.